Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry I'm late. It's a jungle out there. My name is Android Jones, and it's a pleasure to be in your company today. It's the Q&A, correct? Oh, good. I didn't prepare anything. I don't know if you guys want any kind of preamble, or we just want to... Preamble, okay. My Burning Man's been, pretty spectacular so far. This is my 16th burn in a row. I'm at the point where, when I kind of ask, whoa, it's not an emergency on my phone. It's easier for me to pack up all of my things and go to Burning Man every year. It's almost compulsory than it is for me to imagine what it would be like to be at home when Burning Man's happening and not be there. Like, it's more awkward for me to think about that than just making it out here, so you guys are pretty stuck with me. I live in Colorado. Yep, native, 3 generations, Boulder, Colorado. A little farm out there, and I just kind of do what I can to survive and raise a family and explore the mystery of my own awareness and consciousness through art. Seems like it's the one thing that makes a little bit more sense to me than the nothingness of everything else. So, let's see. This is kind of I'm not really doing anything this year. A lot of people ask me, like, what's the big project? A lot of times I do, like, really, I've had a history of doing some pretty ambitious projects out here on the playa. I took kind of a year off just to work on my personality.
How's that going?
I don't know, it's a work in progress, for sure. I'm trying to, one of my goals, things I'm kind of working through is the, kind of the self-awareness of kind of contentment. Not trying to, like, spend all my time in scheming and desiring mode and being present. Part of my intention is just kind of like connect with people too out here, because usually I'm so focused on all the things and the cords and the wires and the expectations and my own expectations and my own crazy mind that I can get kind of lost in the shuffle. So being here, connecting with people, kind of trying to experience the playa kind of as fresh as possible. My family's not out here this year, so it's like solo. I'm just in like acid dad mode. It's bittersweet, for sure. But
How old are your kids?
my kids are Nova, my firstborn. My daughter, she is 19 months. Yeah, hold on. And Escher, my little boy, is 3 months old. Yeah. How many of you guys have kids? Wow. Spoiler alert! Like it's all the cliched things that people tell you about. I think it's they are like the most amazing kind of new thing. They're the new hotness in my life right now. I was reflecting with Martha, I think the day before I left here, we were kind of just like, having kids this young, like sometimes I feel like I'm like when I'm in that moment of present awareness and trying to be as content with the moment. Sometimes I feel like I'm like a future I'm a ghost of like my future self, like haunting my past in this moment, like reflecting on like the golden years of my life with 2 children at this age. I was telling Martha that a lot of what I do involves technology and gadgets and machines and VR and things, but the sophistication of the technology that with our own human bodies we are able to create 2 separate sentient experiencers, and they're at that age now where we're starting to watch like the interaction of them falling in love with each other, like independently, just hanging out on their own, and that's one of the coolest things ever, for sure. Yeah, kids are. If you guys like consciousness or understanding the dynamics of consciousness, having kids is like watching the oh yeah, nice. It's like getting a time lapse of the evolution of consciousness day by day, as you see the gradual awakening of their own self-awareness as an individuated consciousness on the planet. It's a really humbling experience to kind of be a parent and be witness to that moment to moment unfolding, watching them like experience nature, like the innocence of seeing Nova in the garden interacting with plants. But you guys didn't come here to hear me talk about like my kids and plants and stuff, so let's get to the real questions, guys. What's on your mind?
This is a very serious question. I was at LIV a couple months ago where you were giving a talk on the essence of art. Do you remember that talk? Yes.
The essence of...
You were basically talking about like what is art, the essence of art.
Yes.
Yes, okay, great. So I was on a little bit of a trip at that point. I was a little kind of confused about what was going on around me. Thank you. And I walked up to the edge of the area where you're giving the talk, and I saw the PowerPoint had a big question mark on it, and you were asking a question that was so, I can't remember it unfortunately, it was so deeply complex to me in the moment that I wasn't able to tell if it was an actual lecture or if it was perhaps performance art. So I really wanted to come and ask you in person, was that lecture at all performance art, or was it a purely kind of academic experience where you're sharing your thoughts on things?
Essentially, it's all a certain element of performance art, but that was another kind of just winging it and swinging for the fences type of lecture at LIV.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for enjoying it. In the back.
Hi Android, thank you for joining us. You're amazing, man. Can you speak on the differences between Boom Festival and Burning Man, and maybe what Burning Man could learn from Boom Festival?
That's a great question. My extracurricular activities kind of vacillate between Boom and Burning Man. They're kind of two major sort of stars that I kind of plot my trajectory through the year. And Boom is a 37,000 person festival that happens on the full moon every 2 years out in the countryside of Portugal. It's outside this little town called Idania Nova, which is where we named my daughter after. And I've been going to Boom since 2008, and there's a lot of similarities in I guess I can talk about how they're similar and they're different. They're similar that they both really cater to a similar type of kind of a spirit and an energy of the people there. People that are looking for something. They're both heavily psychedelic festivals. Some of the obvious differences is Boom is definitely more of a curated event. It's every 2 years. They spend a lot of time. They like hand selecting like every musical act and every art installation. The
primary distinctions is that I think maybe how they're, how they integrate with the land is something that I noticed this year a lot. The relationship with the playa is one of a deep respect, but there's a bit more of a survival-ness to it. This desert just wants to kill you. And Boom takes place on the lakeside that they own this land. And there's much more of a thriving kind of aliveness, having a large body of water. But I think they're both similar in that they really do, I feel that both of these two events are really rooted in a connection with the land in different ways, where the land here creates kind of a canvas for the manifestation of our own consciousness, where you're also kind of in opposition of it, where the spirit of the boom land, there's a deep desire for the art installations to be kind of an extension and an interaction. Like the chill out stage, the Bamboo DNA guys, they were there during the winter and they just got these big machines and went to as the lake dried up, they got these huge boulders and giant rocks from the bottom of the lake and brought it up to kind of create like the foundations of the edges of this chill out stage, and as the bamboo kind of like sprouts like out of the ground, and it really feels like an extension of the land. And there's a moment I had at Boom this year where I was kind of on this chill out stage, which is incredibly beautiful. They have this really very advanced 360 sound system. They have a bamboo they had an infrabass inside this like raised dance floor platform, so the music is around you, but the music is coming through the raised dance floor that you're on. And I had this moment where I just kind of sat on the edge of this like vibrating wooden dance floor and laid my body down, and I can't remember another moment where I felt that like my entire the machinery of like my physical being was so like, I work a lot in the field of like immersion and these sort of like 360 experiences that felt like every part of my being and my body was a contact point for the creative expression of art and music, where like in that moment, like Boom as a festival, it felt like it was almost a medium for creativity and art to fully engage with like the physical and the spirit, which was really that was unique. I hadn't felt that before. I highly recommend it. It's a psytrance festival, so it's the music of the universe, which is also pretty. I don't know if you guys have taken your psytrance red pill yet, but that's a deep one for sure. So yeah, hope that answers part of your question.
Hi. I would love to hear about a significant spiritually awakening experience that you've had in your life that really deeply affected you.
Great. It's like the Rolodex is just like spinning. Let's see. I think just like they're all fighting right now. They're like, no, this one. I want to think if there's one that I like haven't necessarily told or not. The ones that really stand out are, I think any of the experiences that kind of involve like the kind of the traditional, like the sacred, like shamanic death trips. Those are the ones that kind of have, and there's several of them that I had, I think, for a certain period of time. I started drinking ayahuasca in 2006, and I feel like there was a few years there where I started to almost kind of become like a sacred death trip junkie of sorts. You know, this really weird, like, abusive relationship with my spirit guides, I think, where I kind of kept searching out this experience that was like the most, something about it being so terrifying at the same time, but but obviously when you make it to the other side, the life affirmingness of it is, I think they had a really profound effect of sort of like recalibrating a lot of my goals and, you know, constantly pushing me to question my definition and understanding of reality around me. Even though sometimes I'd like to think that after the types of experiences I've had, I'd have maybe more of an idea of what would happen after death, but I've had so many totally like conflicting experiences and reports that it almost leaves me more confused than ever about it. But I think it's I try to adopt an attitude of, I think, a healthy curiosity and respect and appreciation for, you know, the mystery that this life is, and those events. They definitely reinforce the mysterious side and keep me humble whenever I think I have an understanding of what's going on. One of those things can just wipe the whole table clean. I'm really trying to figure out what's going on now, but now, like, seriously. Like, I'm 40, and I figure Nova's a year and a half, and I've got like 3 or 4 years until I need to be able to defend and present a definitive version of like what I think reality is. I'm getting closer. And before it was just like, I think I went through years of just solipsism, that it just could be anything, you know. But I'm starting to kind of, I don't know, like slowly chip away at some of the fundamental dynamics that govern the laws of consciousness to a greater or lesser degree at times, you know. That's getting better, for sure. Yeah.
Do you think you can share any of those that you feel strongly about?
Well, I can say that the only thing that I know for sure is that I have an individual consciousness and awareness of myself in this moment. I got that. That's one. One down. You gotta have a place to start, you know. Otherwise, you're just dog paddling through infinity. If you have like one, you need like a little bit of a life raft to like hold on to. So I've got that. I definitely believe that, you know, consciousness is the most incredible. It's all that. I'm fairly certain that that's all there is consciousness. You know, from my own reflections and experiences to the words of you know, masters and people that I've come in contact with that I respect deeply, that have worked a lot harder than I have trying to figure these things out. Like, I've definitely got that whole consciousness is it thing down pretty well. You know, there's some of the, like the universal laws, like the you know, I don't know. So you can go to like the Hermetic principles. Those are pretty solid. You know, like the law of like duality and polarity and like those. I feel I wouldn't get those tattooed on me by any means, but you know, it's a good like starting reference point for where it's at.
I was wondering if you read philosophy, and if you do read philosophy, if there's any particular writer or excerpt that you find resonates with your art specifically.
Oh, great question. funny you should ask. I am a big fan. It makes a difference with Sagittarius, so I don't know if that gives me some predisposition to philosophy. But when asked a question like this, there's a lot of, we're so blessed to have the records of so many great minds. In my wanderings and kind of meanderings through life, and if you guys are, I can speak for myself, but I think there's inside of us, we all have some sort of, I'm imagining many of us have some type of like longing. I mean, if you're here, chances are you've got a pretty healthy desire for truth and wanting to know maybe part of like what the bigger picture is. And there's a lot of people out there that are happy to tell you what that is. There's a few. I think there's like a handful of like living philosophers that I have a lot of respect for, like the Ken Wilbers. He's a pretty solid guy. However, after being a father, I have a slight bit of hesitation of like any human being that thinks they totally do understand consciousness and humanity without having kids. There's a little bit of a distinction there. So, but Ken took one for the team for all of us, so I'll give him a pass on that one. But my favorite philosopher, I made a joke the other day of like is a Game of Thrones reference, but if I had to have a battle by combat and I was like choose my spiritual warrior throughout like not excluding like the Jesus and like the Buddha archetypes, it had to be like a flesh and blood like man, like a guy that I really feel figured out as much as any individual that I've ever known has figured things out from a way of living it, breathing it, having it like reflected in all different facets of his life, and as being is a gentleman named Dr. Christopher Hills. Has anyone heard of Dr. Christopher Hills? It's so awesome to share him with you, and it's so unfortunate that you guys aren't aware of him yet. I only became aware of him because 2010 I got an invitation from a female artist, a woman, to live in this sort of this villa in Northern California, in Boulder Creek, California, and it just happened to be she was the widow of Christopher Hills, and this was the sanctuary that he created in the kind of like the 80s and 90s up there. They called it the Goddess Temple. Anyone heard of the Goddess Temple stories? Oh man. It's originally it was called the Temple of Forgiveness, and anybody like spirulina? I think I have a spirulina mustache right now from here. So Christopher Hills is credited with being the he obviously photosynthesis created algae and spirulina, but he's the one that the reason that we consume it now is because of Christopher Hills, and he discovered it as part of a 25-year long life goal of ending starvation on the planet, and spirulina happened to be the way it all sort of in our smoothies is kind of the watered down effect of that. But he's the kind of guy that he what was the Goddess Temple was originally called the Temple of Forgiveness, because he needed a place to spend like the later years of his life and meditate and learn how to forgive humanity for not being able to like understand how he was trying to help them throughout his life. I'm just gonna pick one of these things. Just it's better to in no particular order. this book here, this is just like I keep this on me. It's called The Spiritual Diary. It was assembled from his students. They're taking out of just, it's kind of like a little best of. It was taken out of like lectures that he gave, different satsangs he had with his students. He had a series of courses of deep meditation courses, but this one, it's just one for every day. So it's the February 11th. The mind cannot know the mind. Therefore, the tools of transformation must be searched for beyond the levels of the mind. The human imagination is the source of all the ideas and symbols used by the concept-making mind, and that is where we must look for the tools and symbols of mind transformation. So his whole trip is all about light. That our consciousness is the crystallized light from the explosion of the center of the universe. He discovered spirulina as a food source to feed the world, because his belief that we all have these light bodies, and it wasn't a matter of getting more like calories into a human being, but it was about getting more light force into people, and spirulina being the most direct form of eating the sun through photosynthesis. But this is, I don't know, I encourage you guys to look into more of his work. I don't want to make this a whole Christopher Hills lecture. But he's somebody that I think about every day, and he's one of the few people that, he passed away in 97. Total wizard, this tall, beautiful, gray-haired Gandalf character, wrote 33 books. Towards the end of his life, he lived in the redwood forest, and he made a 10 by 10 platform at this pulley system to get to the very top of the redwood forest he was in, and he would get to the point where the stories are that he would just kind of sit naked up there with a typewriter and just directly start kind of channeling these books. His something that he's taught that is something that I feel that I'm discovering sort of more and more is that everything, like all your questions that you have, like everything that you need to know, the answers to every problem and riddle there is, can really just be found in the observation of nature itself. He very much kind of espoused doing what you can to like align yourself with life around you and the regenerative forces of nature. And it's something as living on a farm, it's something I reflect on a lot. Like what an incredible teacher nature can be, as long as we have like the patience and the awareness to become present with it and just understand its subtle dynamics. I tell people sometimes that I take LSD just so I can try to get a better understanding and appreciation of nature around me. That's like one of my favorite things to do.
You've alluded to, and I think all of us here can acknowledge, the transformative experience that is Burning Man. This is just on my mind, so I'm curious as a human to human your thoughts on it. But I see reference to a lot of cultures and indigenous beliefs and traditions here, and oftentimes paid honor to. But something that's coming up for me right now is the faces and the voices that aren't here, and maybe your thoughts on radical inclusion and unfortunately how I look around the room and it's quite a white audience, and yeah, so maybe just your thoughts on that, because that's kind of coming up for me as we enjoy this privilege to be out here, that it really is a privilege, and I don't see that full reflection of the human community that we are part of.
That's an interesting question. Burning Man is very much of a kind of a tribal thing. I think any of the cultures that many of us would like to see represented more here, I think they are cultures because they did develop their culture in a kind of individual, secular way, and they developed it over hundreds and hundreds of years to get to a point where it was something that kind of stood the test of time and was worth sharing. I think as movements go throughout, if we kind of take a zoom out to like a longer perspective of time, like Burning Man is still really in its sort of infancy, and it is it is a real privilege to be able to have a lifestyle where the majority of our fundamental needs of survival are taken care of, that we can kind of enjoy this this level of like mental and spiritual indulgence, to say. I don't know if I have any ideas. I'd have to meditate a little bit more on like what are the best ways for Burning Man and the culture of Burning Man to be more inclusive. I think that the regionals give a lot of opportunity to sort of, I kind of consider like Burning Man as this is like a kind of a concentrated sort of a crystal that's happening. There's a catharsis that happens in all of our lives here. I think that something I came to realize in the days and weeks of the preparation I had for Burning Man leading up to it is that Black Rock City is a place. This is a physical location, but I'd like to think that Burning Man is more of a state of mind, and it's up to each of us as individuals to learn the deepest lessons and truths that we have, and to be able to share that state of mind with everyone outside the borders of Black Rock City.
your artwork in about 2015 at the Lightning and Bottle Festival, and I was just completely drawn to it and totally amazed by it. And I've been in touch with you since, or I've continued to go to your stuff since, and I'm interested in the layers, like the many different layers of it. How do you know when it's enough or when it's too much? I just want to know, like, it's an important part of trying to, or when you take acid, when I take acid, I see fully different layers, fully overwhelmed by it, but at the same time completely, I see all the layers that you have, and I'm just absolutely in awe of it, so.
That's a great question. I think a lot of that really comes down to the process that I use. Like for me, like the process is it's really it's kind of the fundamental, it's the core of the experience. I think of why I'm an artist is the journey that each individual piece has. The layers are ultimately sort of a means to an end. Often there's rarely any points where I feel that I've done, it's rare I get to the point where I feel like that I've done everything I can to this piece within my means and it's perfect and it's done and doesn't need one more pixel. I'd say the 90% of the times I either give myself deadlines that I run out of time and it has to be finished, or I abandon it, and I just once I feel that I lose my inspiration, that there isn't any more for me to kind of meaningfully explore, and or that the idea of I'm not a great finisher. Like I love starting things. I love like the chaos and an explosion,
I think of the creative process as almost as if you're kind of exploring this, you're navigating and kind of collapsing this quantum fractal sort of infinite tree of all the possibilities that exist, and you're narrowing all those down to the finite 100% probability of where it is when you end a piece. And the journey through that is, I think, what drives me. And there's a point where I just feel that either the path just becomes so narrow that I've like painted myself in a corner and there's nowhere else to go and there's nothing else for me to explore, or I get to the end of a branch and it germinates a new idea that's more attractive and to. I do that really often to work on a couple pieces just. But even when you do that, there's even the final product isn't something that may not be amazing, but the things that you learned on where you might want to stop the dance next time can be a valuable experience for the future. Do you like Rick and Morty? Yeah, I do like it. For sure.
How does your experience differ working with Tipper versus Spangle in terms of the type of music, but also like their personality and expectations?
Yeah. I enjoy both of them, is the correct answer. And I like both of their music. I worked more with Tipper over the years. What can you say about Tipper? I can say that Tipper is the reason there's the question mark is his logo. Like he's a deep mystery. Kind of the same thing. Just when I think I've figured out a bit of Tipper, I realize I'm not even anywhere close. And so I think there's a certain, maybe it's the pursuit of trying to create a visuals that complement the he's really, I think he's really bringing through like a very unique creative frequency for all of us, and I have a lot of respect for that. He's one of the artists whose music like really surprises me more. Sometimes there's music you hear and it's consistent. It's got a lot of consistently good artists, but Tipper is someone that I think is kind of constantly comes up with things that are kind of at the edge of what I would be able to kind of imagine audibly. So, yeah.
I've noticed that your art is based on many visual things. The experience is incredibly visual. And it feels like the experience is not really related to sound, more it's related to the without sound. That was it.
I think I understand a little bit. I think a lot of times one of the things that when I sit down and kind of create an image, like I don't visualize things in my imagination, and I don't hear music. I'm a great lover of music, but it's not something that I have any really practice or ritual around creating. But one of the things that I think that I use that informs a lot of the work that I create is actually just more of a kind of trying to follow an emotion. And so it may not be the notes and the particular frequency of a sound of a song, but I think it's the emotions that the song gives me, and I try to explore and use images in order to communicate those emotions. And sometimes when I start a new piece, it's the way that I'll communicate it will be really, really subjective and abstract, where it could just be the energy, like the velocity or the direction I have of like a stroke,
on the canvas or on the Wacom, or the color that I'm choosing, or if it's becoming like more harmonic or disharmonic, and exploring and finding that place of like friction between line and edge. I think I love making images because there's no real limit to the colors and the shapes that you can choose, but there's still like a rule set within it. Understanding how sort of the meaning-making machines of our minds like take colors and shapes and lines and edges and use those to inform ourselves and create ideas and pictures, and they can elicit emotions, but understanding the kind of the template of that and being able to play within that space of just line, form, and color, it gives me, I think it's a place that I feel a certain amount of comfort being able to navigate that. It's I don't know if it's necessarily like the safety of it, but I think it's something that feels, it's easy to feel like we're out of control with the world around us. Sometimes life's happening to us, and sometimes it's happening at us, and there's so many things that affect us that are just feel totally out of our control. And when it comes kind of the world of art and imagination, I feel it's this domain that being able to have express like the full range of fidelity between the horizontal and the vertical, and to create a world and a rule set that, as long as it makes sense to me, it gives me some comfort and makes me feel good, ultimately.
Hello. I think we can all agree that you have an incredibly large vision, and it's beautiful. For me, I find large vision causes a lot of anxiety for people. Do you feel like you've experienced that? And if you have, how do you deal with it?
It does. I'm trying to kind of readdress that in my life right now with these large visions. I have a kind of mind that I feel that I don't know if it comes from maybe like a deep sense of like dissatisfaction with the way things are, or knowing that things can be different or better, or wanting that. I think there's this balance between finding that point. I was reading some yoga sutras the other day that really talked about the element of being, how important it is to be content with where things are at, because there's a balance between having a vision that gives your life meaning. Meaning is very valuable it's fundamentally valuable. Having a vision that's bigger than yourself gives your life a larger and a greater meaning in a context that makes it not just about you. So I think those are important, but I think that it's important to also temper that and question why we have this vision, and where a lot of it is just really like, as using kind of a crude analogy, but like the term like ROI, like the return on investment. When I think about these plans and these visions, and there's so much of our lives are spent in the desire of something. There's so much. So there's a difference between pursuing a vision and being kind of a slave to your own desires. Because if you're spending all your time desiring this thing, if we achieve this thing, often we don't even achieve the things that we desire, but once we actually have that desire, we look at the amount of satisfaction it gives us. If you could look at the amount of like minutes of joy and happiness the goal gives you before the next desire just hijacks into that, it's a very bad ROI for happiness to always be in desire and to not be content with the way things are around us. So I think sometimes it's around, I mean, obviously we look at the world, and as we mentioned before, like, we're incredibly privileged and blessed to have this type of opportunity for us to all explore our own consciousness here in this crazy place. You know, that's a really exciting thing, and that there's a lot in this world that is there's a lot of what seems like, from my unique perspective, like a lot of unnecessary suffering that's out there too. And it kind of comes down to like our own judgments on, you know, like I didn't come up with the rule book on why we're here or what's going on or what the purpose is and what the goal is and what's the value of this. You know, there's value to friction. You know, suffering is a type of friction. Like without the crucible of friction and suffering, there's a defensible argument that life wouldn't have the same meaning that it does. And who's to say like why we go through that? So I think it's about understanding. It's really about what are the things, you know, having like, it's like that prayer of serenity, having the, you know, the power awareness to change the things that you can, and the wisdom to know the difference, the things that you can't change, and to try to honor and appreciate like the unfolding, the ever unfolding perfection and the gift of life that we have, and seeing what are the experiences that we've had as individuals, and what are the things that we've learned, and who are the people that we can multiply and share our gifts and our awareness to create outcomes that don't come from a sense of desire, but come from a sense of wanting to like deeply and genuinely like explore the meaningful contribution that we can make to all of our individual lives together in the best way possible. In the back.
Can you speak on how you've changed your tools to create your artwork? As far as pre-VR, it seemed you used your Wacom tablet, Corel, to create artwork such as Harmony of Dragons, Dharma Dragon, and now post-VR, it seems you're primarily using that tool to create your artwork. Can you speak on the differences of that change?
Sure. Yeah, part of my makeup, I think there's always been I've really been attracted to tools, and as these tools, as tools for, when I think of tools and I think of like mediums in general, like I started to really see that what mediums do, they represent the point of friction between our consciousness and our choices, and how the interaction with the material world around us. You know, it's like painting it represents a very specific like spectrum of our consciousness manipulating this like viscous material, the molecules of it, the texture of the paper. There's something about, you know, there's a friction in the amount of paint you can fit on a paintbrush and how fast you can get an idea out onto the canvas. And I think that all of the different tools, the reason I'm attracted to different tools, and a lot of my use of tools there's a lot of like kit bashing and kind of hacking, and I seem to like to use tools in a way that they might not have been intended for, has been kind of a pattern. I'm not really sure why that is, but there's something about, there's a novelty that I've enjoyed. It's kind of like, I don't know, being like a conquistador, like an explorer, you know, like a new tool. It's like a new horizon to be able to kind of journey through. As the tools have evolved, I try to see I've been trying lately, as I get older and older, is to, in kind of like a Marshall McLuhan way of like looking at the bigger picture of mediums. You know, Marshall McLuhan has his book, The Medium is the Message, kind of looking at like, when you look at mediums, the real, each medium has its own individual message to it that's independent of the content created within the medium, like what's being expressed there. You look at things like the result of a medium like the telegraph was World War II. The medium of television is how we decided the leaders that we elected. That was kind of the message of different things. And so when I think it comes to VR, a lot of these mediums, they represent a certain an extension of our central nervous system. I think that's part of what's kind of happening. I feel that it's not just about how the things that this new mediums make available, but it's the way that it changes the different decision and how it changes the perspective of my consciousness when I'm in a particular medium. And with things like VR, I think part of the message is with VR it's a type of a hardware, but it involves the synthesis of these powerful graphics cards and computers and LED technologies and lenses. There's all these things that are coming together, and same with this new immersive medium. The work that we do with Samskara, I try to my best of my abilities, kind of forecast, make some estimated guesses of what's happening, and what are the experiences that people are finding value and meaning in, and what's behind these trends. And I haven't fully fleshed out my theory on it, but I feel that with kind of the VR as a medium, there's something about the opportunity. I think more importantly than VR, the immersivity is this real-time element. It's the amount of computations and calculations that can be carried out instantaneously that have the ability to, in the moment, reflect a part of ourselves. It's almost like this new immersive digital mirror is being formed that's going to be able to give our consciousness a new perspective onto itself and its place and what it's doing, so it can kind of create the next medium. And I think personally for me, I've actually I've gone a little even more full circle in my life, because now with my daughter, my favorite thing to do is in the mornings we wake up and we start painting, and so I'm starting to expose her to paint and mediums, and it's the same thing where it's important to realize that there's something really exciting about technology and all the breadth of variation and opportunity it allows us to create. But still, it's something I think about is that it's important to, not go all the way and kind of buying our own poster when we think about how advanced that it really is. When it comes to my daughter, and her brain is growing, and the plasticity of the amount of dendrites that are kind of unfolding is in these 3 years there's more brain activity happening in these 3 years than will be happening in the next 30, I don't know how many years. And when I think about the way that I want her consciousness to take shape, the idea of her hands manipulating the molecular density of physical paint and seeing the colors change and watching how it moves over different types of surfaces, and the feedback loop of her sitting back and seeing what's happening and how that changes. There's something that's so sophisticated about that. It's so technological. If you think about on a calculation basis, I was talking, is Bruce Damer giving a talk here yet? Bruce Damer is kind of he's on the he's getting to the Christopher Hills level too. And he lived next to Christopher Hills, right down the street, which is strange. But Bruce Damer was at my house a few months ago, and we were talking about technology and AI and computations, and Skynet and the robot apocalypse and all that propaganda that they like to put on us right now. And he made a point, I'm gonna give him full credit, talking about how technology works and calling codes and the calculations, and we were just sitting there and we had a glass of water and the water was like halfway filled up this small glass. And on a molecular electron level, it's just important to put things in perspective. There's more calculations that are going on in in the molecules of half a glass of water than there are in all of the supercomputers throughout our entire history working simultaneously. You know, we're very new to the world of making things that haven't been here before, and the natural world is something that it's the technology of nature and actual physical materials is something that is, I think it just deserves a lot of respect. And where my full circle in this now is that one of my new favorite things to do is I started actually like making my own charcoal on the farm. So I kind of get the wood and make the charcoal, and I'm just trying to kind of hold the polarity and the balance between the respect and understanding of charcoal, which is arguably could be one of the first creative extensions of human consciousness. The way that we first like individuated an idea or something that was inside of us, and a way that we used this thing with fire to externalize something. So I think of charcoal as like the fundamental, like original art tool, and kind of appreciating that for exactly what it is and honoring that, and at the same time holding the possibilities of what the farthest extension of, what the way that these tools develop is that they do develop from a feedback loop from ourselves as an extension of our consciousness with the previous tool that gives way to the next tool. And it's a pretty exciting little lineage when you think of it like that, and its evolution and how we can take it to its next inevitable expression.
How, when, and why did you take DMT for the first time, and what did it do for you?
Good question. How, when, and why did I take DMT for the first time, and what did it do? How? Let's see. When is it was I was in Canada. It was 2006, 2005 or 6 maybe. Why I took it is because I had been, in my studio at night, working, listening to Palenque Norte podcasts and Lorenzo, and hearing old Terrence McKenna lectures of DMT and the machine elves and this incredibly visual, interdimensional place. And I was just, as an artist, something that was really attractive to that. It was kind of really exciting and scary. And at that point, back in 2005 and 6, you couldn't just find, plumes of DMT smoke on a Tipper dance floor. It was a little harder to come by back then, even on the West Coast. It was not the party, not the as Chris Fideli says the DMT. It smells like teen spirit of our generation. Chris just came out with a new hippie field watching guide that he's been giving out to a couple people in camp. It's pretty awesome. So that was the why, and the what. Loaded it. I think it was like an acacia. Is what me and I was with one of my best friends, Fong, who was he was he's one of my favorite kind of trusted allies in life, as far as like his personal spiritual calibration. And so I'm there and I'm loading up the pipe and I'm, taking the 3 puffs and I'm just like ready, just like so, so many of my psychedelic experiences, there's just like this moment of just like reckless abandon and excitement and white knuckle tear and naivety and recklessness, and I'll kind of go for it, and I'm fully expecting to like, see the self-dribbling basketballs and the machine elves, and my little, interdimensional family. And I feel like the first thing that happened was like I felt like I was in this sort of like, it wasn't as pretty as I thought that it was going to be. There was a moment of feeling like I was kind of trapped in this like interdimensional, like infinite black box, like waiting cube for like a long time, just long enough to feel kind of eternal and horrifying. And then I went straight to, my first DMT experience, I felt like I went straight to the edge of the if there's a boundary between the manifested and unmanifested, and I felt like I saw, it was the most terrifying vision I've ever had, but I felt like it was like almost, I guess, I can only make analogies to describe these things because they're part of it's beyond just description. But like the analogies of kind of like the never-ending story, like the great nothing. Like I felt like I saw like the great nothing, like the supreme like Kali Ma, like, and it's within its like infinite fractal teeth was just ripping and shredding the universes, not stars or solar systems, just universes were being churned in this like interplay, and I'm just, as much as my consciousness was able to like grok and grasp the all-inspiring, phantasmagoric diorama in front of me, and then I'm instantly like back in this little cabin in Canada, like amongst the trees, like feeling so betrayed by the bard, Nothing had prepared this for me. And my friend, and I was pretty freaked out, I think that's a justifiable freak. It's feeling freaked out after something like that that's a defensible position. My buddy Fong is just like, you just gotta like, you have to ground, you have to like, connect, put your cord and connect with the earth, and put a cord up and connect with the heavens. And I'm just like, I just saw universes devoured. There is no ground or heaven to connect to anymore. It was a minute before I went back to that guy. DMT still freaks me out. Like I've got way more of a, a lot of my fan base are really generous, and I've got way more of like a collection of a little library of DMT that I just kind of stockpile away with a healthy amount of respect, and when I need it, it's there, I guess. Yeah. The toad's a bit of a different story, but yeah, the 5-MeO, I don't know. It's like, it was easier to feel comfortable totally reshuffling the deck of my card of perceived reality when I was younger and more innocent and didn't build as much of an infrastructure around myself, Like I still find time to pretty much, break the boundaries of my expectations here and there, but sometimes I like the little house of cards that I've built around myself, and I'm not really ready for, the full interdimensional mannequin, mantis, insectoid, interdimensional aliens to, mess around with my spiritual internal circuitry. I'm working really hard to get like a good circuitry going on right now, and there's one thing I do know for sure is that there's a much bigger reality that's beyond us, what those things are, why they are, where they came from, specifically what their intentions are with us when you make that little interdimensional collect call out there, and who picks up the phone. You know, it's a bit of a wild card. You know, and there's certain time and place where I feel comfortable. You know, placing that collect call out there, and you know, other times I think I just kind of rather, you know, find, you know, I think like I said, like I do espouse, I do feel that consciousness is the most powerful drug that there is, and I'm just becoming a lot more awareness that there's, I feel that a lot of, the DMT is different, but as I grow, as I become more mature, I'm learning more and more about the, you know, I guess it's like when I make a journey now, like I could, there were times where I would just throw a dart at the wall and just jump in, you know, a little more of like a fool archetype, but I feel that this, you know, as being a father now, you know, now suicide's no longer an option, and my life is not my own, and I have, thank you for that. Thanks for not killing myself. That's good for thought. I feel more of a desire to make steps towards creating pathways that are more authentic and repeatable within myself and with different meditation, because that's a call that I can kind of predictably make. You know, it's slower, it's not as sexy, it's a lot more work, it's, you know, it doesn't have the instant gratification of the, you know, the sacred death slot machine that these substances offer, but I feel in the long term, people a lot smarter than me have come back with very positive reports about how that affects their lives in a meaningful way, and I'm inclined to believe them. You're welcome. Good question.
Good. Hello. Have you ever thought about working with the medical field and working on VR to help with phobias and depression?
That's a great question. Yeah, we are. That's something we're actually in pursuit of. That's one of the larger visions of the company, Vision Agency, and Microdose. You know, the music festival kind of microdose experience that we have, it's much more of a, we consider it like more of like a Trojan horse on how to kind of develop it and get the energy to keep our company going and get like instant, like immediate feedback. But the longer roadmap and endless ceasing desires that we have around what we want to do, they do focus more on the pharmaceutical industry as far as creating. I mean, I see VR. It's both like fascinating and kind of terrifying, as you know, it represents like the most sophisticated sort of brainwashing / reprogramming tool that we have right now for consciousness, and so it's part of our. We feel a healthy desire towards exploring that route. So, like one thing we've been working a lot with biofeedback. We have a prototype of biofeedback sensor that takes in your heartbeat and your EEG and your alpha and your it gives you like a real-time pulse. We can use different deep learning and data sets to take the information of the heartbeat and then calculate like your breath or the changes over time. And so we're currently working on a version to it. We can externalize and you can see your heartbeat through. You can animate that data as any type of like particle or object in the world. So you really want to develop a visual relationship between the intimate aspects of our biology and being able to see them and have a deeper relationship with a lot of the invisible things that are animating us every morning.
think that's what I was a little bit what I was touching on before. I think that there's a positive sort of feedback loop and reflection that's able to offer us, just even having just a deeper understanding of ourselves. So we're using that. We're using some nidra, like deep relaxation meditation techniques to kind of create like a procedurally driven, anxiety, immersive therapist experience. If things work out, we're actually here. I was talking to some of the coordinators. We're on camp with the Broners, Forming Against the Machine and Maps, and we're going to, I think Saturday and Sunday, we're going to look into bringing one of our kind of demo units and the biofeedback to potentially work in the Zendo. But that's one of our goals, or one of my, I think, kind of dreams is like being able to use that for, it wouldn't be the tip of the spear, like first encounter when you go to the Zendo to be thrown into VR in a simulated reality, but our baby steps were going to be an alternative to like the coloring books that they offer you as you try to like slowly put back the fragments of your consciousness onto the plane of playa existence. So, long answer, yes, it's pretty exciting to do that kind of stuff.
Is Samskara here this year?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, Samskara is here.
Everybody wants to know. It's 8:30 in D. 8:30 in G.
And everybody, it's an honor. I'd really love to just take a moment to introduce one man that's had an incredible impact in my life and the lives of countless other people. And has anyone seen Samskara here? Okay. I am just the rapper. My work is just like the avatar delivery system. But we're honored to have the presence of George, our Swami over here. And Swami is really the harbinger and the instigator and the genius behind the entire team of dedicated Krishnas and that put together and help distribute Samskara to people all around the world. And I'm incredibly grateful for my connection with him. And yeah, I'm sure you guys if you guys want to find out about the Samskara showing, they're happy to inform you on where that may be happening.
Could you tell us a little bit about how psychedelics are kind of used in your creative process while you're making your art and discovery, inspiration? Do you use psychedelics like during the moment when you're creating?
Yeah, different artists. Yeah, it's interesting. There's no real template. There's no real gold standard in the visionary community. Everybody's different. I'm definitely more like a method actor in that sense, where for me it's really about. I guess it started when I was like 15. I started smoking pot and drawing. I was drawing, from 5 to 10, for 10 years, from 5 to 15. And when I had marijuana, I realized that the first thing about it, drawing is an act of kind of creating and solving your own problems when you make a drawing. And it felt like if all the problems that I had, I was looking at it on like a two-dimensional plane. Marijuana, it made that two-dimensional plane maybe more of a tetrahedron. And I could turn and I could approach all the same problems I had, but I could see them from different angles and I could find different solutions. I think that's a good sort of base kind of metaphor for how other different types of substances, they're all different. There's ketamine would completely eradicate and erase any sense of self. Sometimes I felt like it would connect me to just like the pure spirit of creation beyond like ego, identity, or questioning, or doubts, or fears, or you wake up passed out in some mysterious place after the piece is done. So not espousing and recommending that one, and saying there's a certain frequency that did. It's just like coffee and stimulants like that, and
No, the human body is I feel like it's like the firewall we have between our souls and our inner spirit and the reality around us. And so any major change onto the variable of this firewall will naturally extract a different outcome and a different result. For things like LSD, I found that there's a couple things that it does. One thing it does subjectively, I feel that there's times where I consider it kind of like it's definitely helped me. It's thrown me down some rabbit holes, but by and large, I feel like it's really it's helped me distinguish a level of truth. It helps. It's kind of this sword that cut away like all distractions. A strong dose of acid really clearly illustrates the aspects of culture that should be intolerable. That we seemingly somehow find a way of putting up with. Things like that. And so the same sort of reflection on my life and my decisions also are very bifurcated in like tolerability or intolerable. So it connects me to a deeper sense. It makes me more present in the moment. Like in those moments, like all that exists is like this moment, whatever audio, like the tone of the audio that's playing in the tip of the pencil or paintbrush or Wacom in my consciousness. Like there's nothing happened before, it's going to happen after. It kind of puts you into that. And because I think the value of a piece of art is intrinsically connected to the passion and the intensity of the experience that the artists have. I mean, that's what we're really infusing our life force and our experience, and we're kind of forever taking this eternal, infinite moment, and we're just trying to carve it into stone on the side of a cave wall. We're like focusing, we're crystallizing all this time and consciousness into an object, into a statement. So anything that makes me feel more full of life, more full of wonder, full of more kind of curiosity. And in particular, there's something about with LSD, the phenomenon of like a pareidolia, like looking out in the clouds and seeing a tiger or a dragon like that. LSD for me, and for some people, some reports that I've seen, it's almost like it takes that meaning making and puts it on like a type of steroids, So it almost gives me it gives me like a real time feedback loop preview of the potential of the unmanifested before it's manifesting. It can do that, and so that's a valuable thing, but it doesn't always work out. Sometimes you just get totally spun out, and you start like ruining a piece, and then you get so it's not a tried and true proven formula. But I think that it's more. I think that what I find is the more meaningful aspects of it. It's not so much. And a lot of times, you're crystallizing all that information. There's a lot of people that one of the emails I get a lot at the time is, "Hey Android, I'm 17 and I'm sitting in my room and I took acid for the first time. Why does your poster talk to me? And why do the other posters not talk to me? P.S. Thanks a lot for the talking poster." That's a classic. I don't know why that poster talks to him, honestly, but I theorize that if the particular poster he's talking about was a poster that I made heavily in a state of like lysergic consciousness, I was able to, because when I'm working in that state too, there's a question about layers. One of the reasons I do enjoy working digitally as well is that the monitor isn't, in those states of mind, it's not really a flat surface, it's more of like a window or like a portal into another place. And oftentimes I've had experience where I can visually see the distinction of different layers as a three-dimensional object that's coming off of. I'm able to kind of take all of that data and all of that information that kind of gets collapsed down, and I can kind of extract it spatially. And sometimes when I'm doing that, and a lot of times I'm talking about working emotionally, sometimes I'll just put on Tipper and just make shapes and colors and emotions and just watch the feedback loop of myself and the reflection of like this shape and this color and what emotion arises, and then following that arisal, and then what does that give shape to? And a lot of times it feels as if a larger narrative starts to take over. It's not. It departs from the edges of sort of just subjective chaos, and then my mind starts making more of an order to it. And then sometimes, if you follow that one down, then sometimes the pieces start. There's a moment sometimes where I feel that I can tell the difference between like my happy accidents and there's subjectivity of pareidolia and like, oh, that looks like a face or that looks like that. But then in the deeper levels, there's often times where all these different pieces then start coming together in like an orchestral sort of like weird Voltron way. It's definitely not something that I ever planned, and feels like there's some type of other hand guiding something. It feels like there's chess pieces are being moved into place, and I'm just like, uncovering the edges of everything that wasn't that. And it's often, but it's also sometimes too, it's like, there's a window of that frequency. A lot of times I've had the experience of feeling like I'm like racing a clock. There's a certain portal where I can see the unmanifested full potential like vision of this thing in real time as I'm created it. But the superpowers of the interdimensional moving and shifting, animating layers of this thing is a limited bandwidth of how that's going to be available, and I need to take all that information and collapse it into ultimately a two-dimensional image that other people are going to be able to experience with default consciousness. And if I'm not able to execute that vision in time before the superpowers wear off, like, it all collapses into just meaningless chaos. There's no salvaging it at all. So there's kind of like, it's a time-sensitive thing, but I think it's ultimately, it's just that, it's what I described there. It's the journey of reaching a destination that would have been impossible for me to ever imagine or project out there, and it's the pursuit of that is, I think it's one of the things that really drives the passion that I have for the opportunity to be able to make these images. The images end up really just being the residue of the experience. They're like the skid marks through interdimensional creative time and space that are kind of like left over. And grateful that there's something about the work that's able to find a audience and the consciousness of people to create a feedback support loop that enables me to dedicate more of my time to the pursuit of the creative experience. So thank you guys for that.
I had a question about... Hello? Oh, okay. I had a question about, like, AI. I think one of the most profound things you said so far in this lecture has been consciousness is the most profound drug, and I really like that. and I'm curious to hear your opinions on AI with it coming into field. Do you think it's like the next step for consciousness, or do you feel like we're losing something by going there?
Good question. I've gone back and forth on the AI thing a lot. I think it's incredibly powerful. As far as as an extension of our consciousness and what we can do with it, like I was mentioning, like some of the way that like we use a lot of we use some AI like deep learning algorithms to understand like different data sets. Like it allows our minds, we can set up scenarios and we can kind of we can choreograph the interaction of data and information and reach, you know, meaningful results that would be impossible for us to create with any other type of algorithm or procedure. So there's some really exciting things we can do with it. Like any kind of tool, you know, there's going to be good uses and there's going to be negative ones for sure. I think that it will and obviously has the potential to be something that can be, you know, there's a potential of like generating a lot of new ideas and breakthroughs and possibilities, and because the power of it, there's a multiplying aspect of it that there's the playing with fire, because there's ways of procedurally connecting different parts of it together that can have outcomes that are also far beyond our expectations. And humanity, we have a little bit of a track record of our technology seems to be increasing it's definitely outpacing our morality lately a lot. So that's not a great trend to look at, because it really only takes a few bad actors to undo all of the positive benefits of something like AI. So I think it has the potential to be something that can be incredibly dangerous to us. If, you know, there's a fear frequency there for sure. Kind of like leaving like the gas on in your house and like lighting a cigarette and having it blow up. The idea of it becoming like Skynet and gaining consciousness and becoming like our overlords, I don't subscribe to that. I think a lot of that is a bit of magical thinking. I think that from an engineering perspective, if you're an engineer, I think that I can see the argument for how we could be going towards a self-conscious kind of like AI system. But I think that from a biological perspective, when you really look at the sophistication of the brain, and like kind of the same metaphor I made for like the glass of water, like it is so, it's so far beyond, like we're giving ourselves way too much credit to think that we're going to be able to, like, you know, create this golem that will give, you know, it's basically, it's like an alchemical thing. You know, what AI really is, it's like we're these monkeys on this little planet. We figure out a way of like combining the rocks and the crystals and the water, the trees and the silicon together to make more little self-producing consciousness of the earth. But we're really lucky that we can like reproduce and make another human. Like that's incredible technology. The idea of us making AI, it's one part hubris, a lot of part hubris, but I think it's also, it does have to do with this sort of like this ego trip that we would even have the ability to, like, we should be so lucky that we could like give conscious life to the raw material of Mother Earth and have that go on in its own trajectory. I feel like it has a certain, there's something about the AI kind of hypothesis that it has, it feels like it rhymes with the same kind of fundamentalist mentality of a lot of like Abrahamic religions, you know, kind of like the singularity and the rapture, and
right around the corner, and we've got the truth, and you don't have the truth, you know, and we're the saved, and you're the unwashed, ignorant masses, and drink our Kool-Aid, and give us your data, and, you know, there's a pattern that's kind of, that is echoing there, and I think it's important to be really aware of what's going on. Because I said we can definitely like leave the stove on, you know, and totally screw ourselves. But that's going to be more us tripping over like our own tail than it is going to be like, you know, HAL 9000 deciding that like humanity is not worthy of existence anymore. And it's similar to the simulation hypothesis too. I think that's super fake news. Like the idea, like Elon Musk kind of talks about, like, oh, we've got Pong, and now we've got, you know, Counter-Strike, Call of Duty. Therefore, it's only a matter of time before we're sophisticated enough to create a reality that's as complicated as what we see here. For anyone that wants to entertain a concept similar to that, I would, I just might encourage just taking a deeper look at reality and what this really is. There may be a level, the good news is that there's a lot of really, there's a dimension of the material, the molecular density of the material world that is so exciting for you to explore and understand how sophisticated that is. And the idea that our minds have any capacity whatsoever to create the tools that could recreate a reality like this is, it doesn't even deserve an audience as far as I'm concerned when you kind of stand back. And I think the idea around it, there's almost a, you know, I mean, I'll give latitude for anyone's ideas and possibilities and things, but there's a line that I kind of draw where credit just needs to give credit where it's due, to God and the Creator and the All Source, or whatever made this, you know, like any, you know, we're very powerful. We have the power to manifest reality. You know, we're like little manifesting reality engines through consciousness on the aggregate, but our manifestation is slow, and it happens over long periods of time, it happens collectively, but it only happens because of our ability to manipulate like the pre-existing set and rules and structures that are fundamental, that are in place, and that are here completely independently of us and our beliefs in our lives. And so whatever steps we take, I think, I find for myself, I think the acknowledging the same thing we said before, like what we have the power to control, what we have the power to not control, and the things that are out of our control, for some of those things to have an awareness of why they're out of our control. What's the meaning of it that's out of our control? And a lot of those things too, if we can't control it, we can try to understand it, or we can at least try to respect it. But, you know, I'm all for, you know, big, long, generational visions of us achieving amazing things. You know, I think human beings are, they're the most incredible species I'm aware of outside of dolphins and whales. Props to the whales. As far as consciousness, you know, we're not the only game in town, and our reality is at the grace, I believe, of something else, and the acknowledgement of that even whatever that is, it can be your spaghetti monster, whatever, it doesn't matter. But I think, for me, I found a lot more meaning being able to temper my visions and my ideas with the humility of knowing that, you know, everything that I do is at the behest of the one that is so much more magnificent and beyond anything that my consciousness can understand. And to think that we're just going to hijack that because we got some cool tech bros that have some dope algorithm, I think is science fiction. My opinion. Don't take it or leave it. Just, I reserve the right to change it at any time.
You mentioned
Due to time constraints, this has to be the last question too.
Okay.
Hi, so you mentioned psytrance earlier, and that's one of my favorite musical genres, and it seems like there's not a lot of it out here, and I don't know, maybe I'm just missing it, or I don't know where the camps are, but I know Infected Mushrooms is playing tonight. I'm very excited for that at Opulent Temple. But I was wondering, do you know of any camps or any art cars that create that experience and that level of energy? Because that's something that I've been looking for, and I would love to find and help create as a psytrance DJ.
I share your desire, my psytrance brother. Unfortunately, I think the location of the major psytrance camps are 2007 and E. It seems like, I don't know why, but there's like psytrance, I've been going to 16 years, like psytrance was a big deal back in the day, and for whatever reason, it just, I don't know what they did, I don't know, it just became very like non-en vogue, I don't know, the dubstep or something happened, but for whatever the factors were, like psytrance, just a bunch of cool kids decided that it like wasn't cool anymore, and so it's a psytrance. It's for anyone that's had a deep psytrance experience, it's an acquired taste. It doesn't sound great as you're riding past it on your bike, or in the Honda on the way to work on the 405. Like, not the best place for sight. It's a set and setting experience for it to really take hold. And I think this is a great setting for that, but it also requires a certain amount of like patience and discipline. Like you gotta, it takes hours to just kind of to be on the dance floor and just trudge through the motions before the great spirit of psytrance grasps you from underneath the dance floor and animates you. Now, psytrance it's a mystical experience for anyone that hasn't been touched by the powerful, omnipresent, interdimensional, universal experience of psytrance. I don't know, I haven't heard of any good stuff this year. They used to have Hooligan Alley was a camp that would have some good psytrance artists. Keep hope alive, maybe slowly. I'm just waiting any day now. I think I keep telling like friends like Bass Nectar and these guys, and like, if you just like throw down a psytrance beat at like minute 47 into your concert, these new kids, these like 17, 18-year-old kids that they don't know enough of psytrance to know that they're not supposed to like it or not. Like, you could have a whole new generation of psytrancers. You could be like the Pied Piper of psytrance, like leading the unwashed masses into that day-glow, multi-dimensional, tetrahedral portal out in time and space together. So, yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you guys so much. This was, I really enjoyed this. I never know what I'm going to talk about and what comes out, and it's always really a pleasure to hear your questions and connect with you guys, and give me the opportunity for this interaction and to kind of express my thoughts. So I want to thank everyone here, thank the hardworking staff of Palenque Norte and the amazing podcast they create, and this vibration that echoes out into Psychedelic space. I can reflect on the impact it's had on me over countless late, long, adventurous nights as my companion. So it's an honor to be part of what you guys are producing. And I'm just gonna leave this with just one. I'm just gonna close out with a Christopher quote. I just randomly kind of found this one. At the very nuclear center of being is that pure consciousness which created the universe. It is that stuff which recreates our universe for us, where we can see no difference between what we see with and what is seen. We are getting close. The closer we get, the less there is to see. Thank you guys very much.